It's coffee time with John. Look at that, it's getting down there. I wanted to jump on this morning and share a story that lets you know that you're never alone. That the universe, God, consciousness, and the collective individuality within that is there for you. I have a wild mustache here, sticking up my nose. So many years ago, and you guys may have heard me tell the story about the relationship with my father that I had. And I was in Delaware, and I was supposed to be leaving in 2 weeks to go to the Georgia Renaissance Festival, and I was told to get out. I was told to leave. And I had no idea where I was going to go. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was going to a Renaissance Festival, and I couldn't get on the festival site for 2 more weeks. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I started hearing, it was sticking out of conversations, the word Griffin. I was just starting to hear the word Griffin. I was watching a television thing, and it said the newscaster was talking to the sportscaster about how weird it was. They had both just named their son Griffin. And I started seeing the sign Griffin everywhere. Griffin sign, Griffin, Griffin, Griffin. And I was like, my dad told me to get out, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? And I opened up a map of Georgia, and the closest place I could go and camp was in a state park in Griffin, Georgia. So I took it as a sign. And I started driving south, and I got all the way down to the state park. Now, the state park, you were allowed to stay in the state park for 2 weeks. And then you had to move on. So it gave me my 2-week leeway. So I drove down to Griffin, Georgia. I pulled into the campground. I went over to their office. I said, where do I park? And they said, well, go out, turn left, and there's this big loop, and all the spots are empty right now. You can take any one you want. He said, just find one, back in, and get set up. So that's great. So I drove out around the loop, and I found this one perfect site. Now, at the time, I had an amazing dog named Odin. He was a 110-pound Rottweiler, the largest lap dog in the world. And I wanted a spot, and I had him trained that he would go into tall grass or into the woods. He would go where I told him to go, right? I would point, I'd say dump, and he'd go dump, basically. He was great. He was a great dog. So I found this spot that right behind the camper was woods, and where the way the camper would have been parked, where my awning would have been open, I would have been overlooking a lake. So it was this perfect spot. And I pulled around, and I started backing my trailer. I had a 24-foot Airstream at the time. I was backing my Airstream into that parking space. And suddenly this truck appears out of nowhere, drives around the circle where I'm backing in. It was like a 1950 Chevy, and it was a truck that I knew exactly what it was because my father had one like that, and it sat in our driveway for years, and I wanted it, and he ended up selling it. But it was like I totally saw this cool truck coming around the corner, 1950 Chevy pickup truck. And a guy gets out, and he's wearing cargo shorts, which is probably what I was wearing at the time. He had a ponytail, which is what I had at the time. So he was probably in his 30s. And he got out, and he had this dog with him who was just a lovely dog, and the 2 dogs got along great. And he walked up. He says, hey, I wanted to stop you before you got unhooked. He says, the power is out on that site. He says, you're going to have to move over to that other one over there. I said, oh, thank you so much. So glad I didn't get unhooked. He says, yeah, it's great. We talked for a couple more minutes, and then I said, is there any place around here to eat? Or he told me some places. And then I turned around. I went to go hook up, and he must have driven off. I didn't see him drive off. Didn't see him leave. So I pulled over to the next site. I backed my trailer in. Before I unhooked, I grabbed a lamp, and I went outside, and I plugged it in, and I made sure there was power. And there was. And I sat there that night, and a storm came through. I pulled in my awning because the wind was kicking up, and I came out the next morning, And where I would have been lying was a 2-foot diameter tree, which would have been right exactly where I would have been sleeping. And I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, So I grabbed my lamp, I went over and I plugged it into that site, and there was nothing wrong with the power. There was nothing wrong with the power. But when I said I was going to Georgia, I said, I'm going to Georgia. I'm going to stay at this place for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going over there. So I had a complete belief. The universe and God was behind my plan, right? He shows up in a pickup truck that I would have recognized that I wanted. It was my childhood dream vehicle at the time, right? And he got out wearing the same kind of clothes and looked like somebody that I would have hung out with at the beach, and somebody like a friend. The dogs got along. I didn't see him show up. I didn't see him leave, right? But I ended up not being laying exactly where a tree would have crushed me and my trailer. And so when you have your intention to go and you have your intention to do, if you can keep your belief that this is happening and this is what we're doing, the universe will conspire to help you. The universe will come in, and the individual consciousnesses, I don't know if that's even a word, within God, will be part of the way that you are helped. People, now he may have been a normal guy, but he was guided in his way to come to me at that point. Or he may have been somebody who was much more aware than I was, and was just there helping me, right? It's just another individual consciousness within God who may have been more aware. So I wanted to tell this story because you're never alone. And help is always there, as long as you stay focused on what it is you're doing and what it is you're achieving, and put your belief in what it is you're creating. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. The John of New channel is solely funded by your generous donations and purchases of private readings and merchandise. To help out, go to johnofnew.com or use the donation link in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.